Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Stuart Donald and I'm a Senior Manager in the Kinapse Consulting team. Before I introduce our presenters and the agenda, I want to take a minute to introduce Kinapse. Kinapse provides expert consulting and outsourcing services to the life sciences industries. We have a global team of over 300 people working with clients to deliver strategic and operational change, as well as specific business process outsourcing solutions. Our team and broad network of experienced partners enables us to bring deep industry insight and technical expertise to our engagements. Of course, we bring innovative solutions, but we also ensure to develop actionable recommendations, ensuring that our solutions can be successfully implemented within each client's specific circumstances. We're committed to ensuring excellent client service throughout our engagements, and our extensive list of client credentials and the level of positive feedback we receive from our engagements proves that we're achieving this. If you want to learn more about Kinapse or have questions about services, then please visit our website kinapse.com or feel free to contact me, Stuart Donald, directly. Okay, let's move on to the focus of today's webinar. Late last year, Kinapse carried out a survey of participants at a Pharmaceutical Portfolio Project and Resource Management Conference. We asked them what would be the key challenges they thought they would face over the next 5 years. The area that they most frequently mentioned was how to manage third-party relationships. Therefore, in order to explore this further, we brought together 4 experienced leaders in the area who represent both the service provider and sponsor sides of this relationship. So let me introduce our guests and the agenda. We'll start with Pani Patel from GSK, who will describe the drivers of moving from a tactical outsourcing model to a strategic partnership relationship. Then we'll get the perspective of Suzanne Bizot, who will provide insights from Bayer's experience with setting up and managing a strategic partnership. Following this, we'll look at this from a CRO standpoint with Shannon Hambridge from PPD. Shannon will describe the importance of the team within an effective strategic partnership. Finally, Angela Potts, who is the head of the outsourcing group at Kinapse, will provide insight into the key factors driving success within a CRO and sponsor partnership. Okay, let's get started with our first presenter, Pani Patel. Pani is a Strategic Relationship Director in GSK R&D's Projects, Clinical Platforms and Sciences Division. He has a statistical background and has been in the pharmaceutical industry for 20 years, 18 of those with GSK. Pani has held a number of positions as a CRA, data manager, and various roles in the area of strategic outsourcing and contract operations. He's currently the Strategic Relationship Director supporting a number of strategic partnerships across the clinical development landscape.
So, starting with you, Pani, what led you and GSK to take this path of strategic outsourcing?
And the key themes, the key factors that came into play, certainly within our organization, that led us to believe that we need to move down the strategic route and up the maturity curve in the way we actually outsource was, the first one was better managing a fluctuating growing pipeline. For those of you who are aware, GSK has I would say, a very healthy pipeline. You know, we've got a positive dilemma that we've got so many assets, but limited resources to actually progress those assets through the R&D value chain up to NDA submission. So we've got a very healthy challenge in our hands here. So we need to get more strategic in the way we actually manage our workload and partner more strategically with folks out there that can really truly drive our portfolio down to NDA submissions. We were in a space where we were spot buying. We were in a space where our resources were stranded across different therapeutic groups. We had a lot of resource waste, was our starting position. We were spot buying across many suppliers. We were incurring hiring costs and firing costs. We were incurring high risk of working with many suppliers out there, because if you think about doing your due diligence, risk analysis, compliance checks, etc., very difficult to do as a sponsor when you're working across many suppliers. So hence there's a risk there from a sponsor oversight perspective. So that's the top left-hand bucket. The bottom was is a dimension around reducing some complexity and costs. We wanted to simplify our resourcing model. We wanted to support a proactive culture of planning up front in how we resource our portfolio. We wanted to increase flexibility in delivering our fluctuating and growing pipeline. And we wanted to decrease our internal waste in terms of reducing excessive oversight when we do outsourcing, reducing some of the transactional handoff costs. And as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to reduce our stranded resources as well, and hopefully increase our return on investment by in essence, leveraging our total spend across just a few suppliers, in our instance 2, rather than working through many suppliers. And that in itself, if we move on to the bottom right-hand corner, in itself would minimize the risks. We would have more effective governance in place, would have a proactive agenda around driving quality into our processes. We could drive innovation, creativity, best practice, all these things that we wanted to do that we couldn't do because we're working with many hundreds of suppliers. And also, top right-hand corner, it will working more strategically will enable our internal resources to be focused on core business, whatever we determined as our core business in terms of our core capabilities. So that's some of the rationale that led us to really believe that we need to move away from tactical outsourcing to strategic outsourcing, partner with a couple of suppliers, and do it more strategically, more thoughtfully, more proactively. If we move to the next, so that in essence, which is what I've covered in my next slide, is moving away from the tactical to the strategic. So we're working with 2 suppliers at the moment. We're moving, is it a mature model? Absolutely not. I don't want to stand here and say to everybody we have a very good, mature capability in the area of strategic outsourcing. No, we don't. We've come from a world of tactical ways of outsourcing and spot buying, but we're learning as we're growing. You know, our 2 CROs we're working with are bringing their own strengths and capabilities and their own agenda to the table to help us drive growth and be more effective in the way we outsource. And we're moving up the trust curve with both our suppliers. Partnership comes into play. Joint objectives, strategic objectives come into play. Alignment, corporate alignment comes into play, and making sure that we have an agenda with our 2 suppliers that we can actually drive growth, both in terms of the volume that we outsource, but also in terms of the capabilities that we're able to generate collectively by working more strategically with our 2 suppliers. Just to move forward, that's all very well said and done. Strategy is a buzzword. It's a sexy word. It's a powerful word. But strategy can only be achieved, and alignment of corporate goals and driving strategic alignment, driving innovation, continuous improvement that Stuart talked about in his intro, building and leveraging capabilities. This is great stuff, right? It's future, it's driving growth, it's being more strategic, it's making sure our portfolio is delivered across all the regions. All that stuff's great, but one of the lessons we've learned certainly in GSK is that all that's the prerequisite to all of that is not to lose sight of the nucleus of any successful partnership, which is the bottom-up build around making sure that we have a handle on the portfolio at hand, which may seem tactical. We outsource to get our studies delivered, right, to time and to quality. And I think we mustn't lose sight of that. We need to make sure that there is good cultural alignment between ourselves and our strategic suppliers. Make sure there's that common language, common expectation around behaviors, and even more critical, we need to make sure that we mustn't lose sight of the fact that our day-to-day business, which is getting drugs to the market for the patients that need it, which means delivering our studies to time, to quality, is something that's the nucleus that will drive any potential partnership going forward, without which we won't be able to do those 3 bullet points that I've described up there. So I think that's something that's quite thought-provoking, which I want to bring to the table here, and I'm sure we can debate this for a long time around what that means. But from our perspective, it is about delivery on the portfolio enables us to do things more strategically. Non-delivery on the portfolio means that we can never get off the ground in terms of behaving more strategically with any of our suppliers. So that's one of the lessons that we're going through within GSK, is moving up that maturity curve around making sure that we've got the right cultural norms, we've got the right behaviors, we've got the right chemistry, we've got the right performance measures to ensure that our strategic partners can continue to deliver on the core business, which is the portfolio, before we can even go beyond that in terms of thinking more strategically and working more strategically. And I think that I'll end it there. So thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, now we'll move to Suzanne Bizot. Suzanne is Bayer Healthcare's Global Alliance Manager, responsible for Bayer's strategic CRO and lab supplier relationship. Suzanne has been working at Bayer for 23 years, first as a research scientist and then as a member of Bayer Pharma's clinical operations teams, as a CRA, a project manager, a CRA manager, and the US outsourcing head. In her current role in R&D procurement, Suzanne is involved in many aspects of the overall delivery of a strategic supplier partnership. So Suzanne, welcome, and thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks, Stuart. As Stuart said, my name is Suzanne Bizot, and I am the Global Alliance Manager at Bayer Healthcare. I sit in procurement and R&D services. And my position was created to work exclusively with our strategic CRO partner that gets about 80% of our outsourced clinical trial work in our pharma division. So today we're going to be talking, I'll be talking about what makes this relationship successful. Next slide. Well, why invest in outsourcing partnerships? You know, we found, and as Penny was saying, this is business critical. We need to get timely delivery of high quality data at competitive costs for our clinical research. And we wanted to invest in this CRO partnership up front to focus our limited internal resources on our most value-added activities. And we also wanted to implement CRO-established innovative techniques, some tools and processes, because we have acknowledged that the CRO is the expert in the field. The key to all of this, really, though, is that the partnership has to be endorsed by senior management. And we know that this is a process that takes time and effort. So this relationship cannot be born overnight. It takes time. And I'll go through some of the steps that we've taken and put in place over the past probably 2 years now. Next slide. Essentially, we need a common vision from both the CRO and Bayer in moving forward. And you know, I always liken this to a marriage. We both need to know the expectations of our engagement going forward. And really, we need to recognize that we have to have a win-win situation. Both of us need to come out and be a part of this relationship and want to be a part of the relationship. And we have to have shared accountability. We're learning at Bayer how to step back and transition from a detailed management to more oversight, which is critical. We have to deliver according to expected quality, timeline, and budget. That's expected. And we have to agree on how to do that together, a very important point. We have to gain efficiency and effectiveness through the volume that we're giving this one CRO, and we need to bank on the lessons learned from previous experience that we've had together. That we do that by sharing our expertise both ways, so open, transparent, lots of communication. And to support the broader strategies and visions and values through innovation. Again, what GSK was talking about, we're hoping that this strategic partnership is actually going to bring some innovation to our collective agreement. Next slide. So in order to do this, we've established a formal partnership governance, and we call this our pyramid. The pyramid is at the very top an executive committee made up of very senior members from both organizations. They are going to define the framework and most importantly, as I said before, visibly endorse the partnership downwards. They're going to champion the relationship, they're going to remove roadblocks, and they're going to consider innovation. The heart and soul of the governance really is the middle part, the operations committee, and they're going to provide continuous review and oversight and guidance. They're going to drive best practices, define annual objectives, and also mediate any urgent issues that are escalated to that group. Now, the ground level working teams are people that are, working day to day with in joint teams, and we have a few work streams that are in place. One is the process and alignment and training team. This is a team that has been put together to develop our partnership outsourcing manual, which is a very large document. Hundreds of people within both companies have contributed to as a shared document of expectations when performing clinical trials. Another example of a governance work stream is our business account management team. They're establishing tools and processes to deliver financial benefits of the relationship, talking about contracts and issues that come up on a monthly basis. And then we have a study steering committee group. This meets monthly to go through probably not all of the studies because that would take too much time, but we highlight some of either the ones that are just starting up or some of the ones that we consider really business critical. So the executive committee would meet probably 2 to 3 times per year. The operations committee meets about every 5 to 6 weeks, and the other teams meet about monthly. Like I said, they're in these groups. They are probably hundreds of people communicating through the various levels and work streams, and we've had this governance in place now for I think about 2 years. So next slide. I found that the elements of success really focus on the priority of establishing that partnership. Really considering ourselves as a joint team, one team, very, very important aspect, and a cultural shift. It is not that tactical relationship anymore with a CRO. It is that we are one team delivering on this for Bayer. And using our expertise on both sides and collaborating together with a common team culture is extremely important. We also acknowledge that we can't pick and choose what we give our CRO partners. So in terms of contracting, it's going to be full service. It's going to be start to finish, from protocol writing all the way through to report writing, and this is to give them more accountability and an advantage to be able to flex their muscle and their innovative strengths throughout the full project. Again, it's left for us to have our in-house resources kept to oversee these outsourcing activities and to be put on other in-house activities besides CROs. And we've developed joint partnership objectives and metrics. This has taken a very long time to agree on what those are, especially the metrics on how we're going to measure them. But very, very important, and we are trying now to actually align these objectives in people's personal objectives on both companies so that they are accountable for them. We employ innovative tools. Bayer has always been a proponent of EDC, but other things that we're introducing to the relationship, and these are truly from our CRO partnerships, listening to them about their experience, what other companies are using, and then introducing it to us. One of the things that's pretty exciting that we've established through this relationship is a web-based partnership portal. This is something that I would say at this point thousands of people are on between our CRO and our Bayer Pharma division. It's a one-stop shop of being able to get online and looking at any news between the two companies. You can see committees and who's on the committee, and if you needed to ask a question, you would be able to find the right person. It's a repository for documents, for meeting minutes, and it's really been a really powerful tool for us to establish great communication between both companies. A fair pricing model is, I think inherent. We know that our CRO has to make a profit and be successful, because if they're successful, we're successful. And I just wanted to acknowledge that we do recognize that. And then lastly, we do employ 360-degree satisfaction surveys that they take place once or twice a year. 360 degrees meaning we rate them and the CRO rates their study by study based on the services that we're employing. And then we share the results both on the portal as well as in the governance committees. And we will assign certain follow-up and action items based on the feedback that we get. So far, I have to say the satisfaction surveys have really been positive. So that's actually my last slide. I can tell you that this has been going on for a couple of years now, and so far so good. I am dedicated to the relationship. I am pulled into many different aspects, from very ground level situations to very high level innovative thoughts and opportunities that we could bring to the partnership. But it's been a really great experience for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Okay, now we're going to switch to get the CRO perspective of things with Shannon Hambridge from PPD. Shannon is a director in PPD's project management division. She has a nursing background and has been in the pharmaceutical industry for 17 years, 16 of those with PPD. She's held positions as a monitor, project manager, trainer of monitors and project managers, a leader and supporter of project teams, and is currently leading and supporting PPD's strategic partnership. So welcome, Shannon, to the webinar today, and thank you for joining. And I'll hand over to you now that your slides should be on the screen.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks very much. And as you said, I will be focusing more on the CRO part of this, but also on the relationship aspect. And I'm very happy to see that I'm going to be building on concepts that Penny and Suzanne have both already raised, hopefully providing a slightly different angle to those as well. Next slide, please. So these are 5 important aspects that I'm going to try to cover in my time today. Shared understanding of goals, setting clear expectations, establishing a cohesive team, that one team that Suzanne had just mentioned as well, collaborative problem solving, and clear support pathways. We could obviously spend an hour talking about each one of these, so I'm going to focus on the fundamentals here and share some examples, hopefully, to illustrate them. Next slide. It's extremely important to begin a partnership with a shared understanding of goals, and I think that's a very rote thing to say. It's something that we all think of, but when we're talking about outsourcing trials, it's very, very important to get clear on what those goals are. All parties in the partnership should discuss and agree that their goals, and we need to take time to align in particular areas if that's needed. Using an outsourced study as an example here, you can see how a shared understanding of goals will facilitate that relationship. Doesn't matter if your outsourcing relationship is around a single service or a full program of studies. Sharing as much information about your goals as you can is really critical. Sharing information engages the team, it creates buy-in, and it creates an interest in contributing to the success of the study and the partnership itself. So at the milestone level, what are the significant milestones for the study? Why are these milestones important? Is there shareholder involvement? Are there stakeholder commitments that have been made? Are there even some financial considerations here? Similar questions apply to the deliverable level. What is the purpose of the deliverable? Is the information from an interim analysis going to inform a study that's waiting to start? Are there going to be submissions made, publications, abstract presentations made based on the information from that deliverable? The importance of shared goals is particularly important at the study level. The partnership team needs to understand and be able to own for themselves the goals of the study. Everyone wants to be involved in a successful study, one that contributes to the product approval, to the market success, and truly a shared understanding of goals ensures that everyone is pulling in the same direction. Next slide. The next step is setting clear expectations, and this is where you begin to operationalize those shared goals. Here again, it's very important to have contributions and engagement from everyone on the team. Each team member must define for themselves what are their own expectations. We often skip this step in the outsourcing relationship and assume that the client or sponsor has the expectations that the vendor will then fulfill. But that sort of one-sided flow sets us up for issues. The work we do in clinical trials is very interconnected, and everyone's expectations should be communicated and agreed for the partnership to be successful. We need to be very clear and very specific, really 2 steps beyond what you think is needed. Clarify every assumption. This feels awkward and time-consuming at first, but once you've done it well, you won't have to do it. Confirm that you are speaking the same language. Even common terms often have several meanings, and it's really best to clarify those at the start. For example, what does clean mean? Are we talking about working days or calendar days when we're setting up timelines? I just came from a call earlier this morning where a colleague of mine had been using the same term for months and clearly meant different things. So it's very easy to fall into that trap. You also want to decide how you're going to measure yourself at the partnership level, at the study team level. Are there key performance indicators that you want to track? Set timelines for these evaluations and stick to them. It will feel like a lot of extra work that you don't think you have time for maybe, but the data is very important to measure your partnership relationship and determine those expectations that you set, or even if the expectations have changed. Next slide. So the team is the group of people who will execute the goals. Each member of the team must be committed to the goals of the partnership and actively engaged in making them a reality. They are empowered to take action, to use their experience and judgment to perform their role on the team. A cohesive team communicates honestly and doesn't let organizational barriers constrain them. They trust that everyone is doing their best and is working in the best interest of the partnership. Most importantly, a cohesive team is able to see conflict as an opportunity. They see an opportunity to fix or refine a process that isn't working as intended. They see an opportunity to include feedback or new information that wasn't known before. If problems aren't raised, we can't address them. Much more productive to raise an issue, work together to solve it, than to let it fester and become larger and more destructive. Working as a cohesive team, that one team, isn't easy, but it's definitely worth the effort. And I think Suzanne's talking about the same thing I'm going to say here. In my current team, an observation that we often hear is when you see us together, you can't tell who works for the pharma and who works for the CRO. This is a very high compliment to us, but it didn't happen overnight. When we face difficult problems, we remind ourselves of the shared goals and of our commitment to them. We go back to our agreed ways of working, these concepts that I have here, and collaborative problem-solving strategies, which help us to work through those issues. Next slide. And I would say that how problems are resolved is a true yardstick for the maturity of the partnership relationship. It's very important to keep everyone focused on the problem and finding the solution. Avoid assigning and refusing fault until a solution has been reached. A root cause assessment may be necessary to develop an adequate solution, but you should be careful not to let that assessment devolve into blaming. Keep the emotion out of it and keep the team focused on the problem. There will be plenty of time for lessons learned, refinement of processes, and fixing the things that helped contribute to the problem later. We first have to get that solution in place and neutralize the impact of that. So this is where you rely on your cohesive team and trust their commitment to the goals and entrust them to find the right solution. It's important to ensure that all the stakeholders involved or impacted are included and consulted in crafting the solution. Really important to identify what the specific actions are and who will be responsible for them. Identify how the solution will be implemented and assign timelines for those actions. If the way we tried it the first time isn't working, we need to be very clear about how the solution is going to be different. And don't forget to identify how the effectiveness of the solution will be evaluated. I understand that I make this sound easy here, but this is really the hardest part. And if you can master collaborative problem solving in your partnership, you will be well on your way to success. Next slide. There it is. And finally, a strong partnership requires clear support pathways. Establishing clear support pathways encourages information to flow up and down within the organizations and between them. The operational teams should be supported by robust and well-documented processes that are tested and refined on an ongoing basis. They should also be empowered to solve problems at the team level whenever possible. The leadership team supports the operational teams in risk management and resolution at an organizational level and for topics that are beyond the scope of the operational teams. The leadership team also serves as a conduit for information on innovation initiatives, best practice, what's happening at a higher level between the organizations. The executives team role is to define the strategic direction of the partnership and to provide guidance to the leadership and operational teams. The leadership and executive teams are also, of course, an escalation pathway within each organization and between them to be able to utilize all of the available expertise to solve problems and to mitigate impacts. So, to wrap up my time with you, I will say that an outsourcing relationship always works best when developed and maintained as a partnership. A collaborative partnership relationship certainly takes more effort and requires commitment than a more transactional interaction. But the investment is usually returned in better executed studies and increased value for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shannon. So we'll now move on to our final presenter today, who's Angela Potts from Kinapse. Angela has over 25 years of experience working in the pharmaceutical sector. Prior to joining Kinapse, she held a number of senior executive positions at Covance, a leading pharmaceutical outsourcing service provider. Angela started her career at F. Hoffman La Roche in marketing, and then she spent 3 years at Innovex Quintiles in operational commercial roles. Naturally, she spent 4 years in executive search and ran her own consultancy practice, and now heads up our outsourcing team here at Kinapse. So over to you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm going to take a slightly different angle on this because obviously within Kinapse we don't necessarily run large-scale global trials. We tend to work in partnership with a number of our clients to support functional roles within organizations. And I'm specifically going to look at a number of relationships we have where we provide the regulatory CMC and publishing and regulatory affairs function for a couple of large pharmaceutical companies. So consequently, as we're running that kind of department, the emphasis on partnership is absolutely key. So if I could have the next slide, please. So looking at our sort of kind of partnership model, I feel it's very multifaceted. People talk about partnership, but what that actually means is there's a number of other things that one needs to get right in order for a partnership to work effectively. And we've talked about, interestingly, I think none of the comments came from my colleagues today or some people on the panel are very sort of similar. I think it's absolutely key to have a good understanding of what people are setting out to do. And by that, I look at the slides at the bottom, the point at the bottom of the slide as buy-in and investment by client. I think especially when these type of strategic sort of partnerships are developing, it takes a large investment from our client and from a CRO to get things right. And I think the expectation is things are not going to go right straight away, and there needs to be sort of time in coming to the setup, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in this presentation. The other element is buy-in. One of the areas where we have seen partnerships falter in the early stages is people within pharma not actually buying into the concept of outsourcing. It's a change in behavior, it's a change in role, and actually quite often it's a change in skills and people how they sort of manage an outsourcing partnership. I think from us as the kind of CROs, we need to make sure we've got the right level of staff with great qualifications and have the process in place and the investment in terms of staff development, career opportunity to hold retention. Because obviously, if we are acting as a extension of a company's organisation, we need to make sure that our staff are enrolled and in place for a period of time. Because in terms of the upfront costs of moving to an outsourcing relationship, it's quite high cost. So we need to make sure that once people staff are up and running and trained, they stay with us and stay part of that relationship. I think all three previous panelists agreed that communication and governance is absolutely key, and I'll come on to that as well. And a part of that is by having effective and realistic KPIs. And that allows you to have very mature sort of conversations on where the state of the relationship, where areas need to be improved, where things are going well, and where you can kind of judge, and we'll look at that in more detail. And I agree with you, Penny, once the relationship is up and running, then you can start to look at continuous improvement. And actually, I think once you get to the point where you're actually looking at continuous improvement, that is probably a good showing that there's a success within the relationship developing, and that's where we start looking at this becoming a very successful kind of partnership relationship. Okay, I'll have the next slide, please. Okay, so talking about sort of communication, it goes back to having a person within the client organisation who understands what outsourcing relationship means, who has bought in and who has the ability to kind of have a senior relationship and can take those sort of decisions, but also manages the internal stakeholders to really understand what the partnership means, what we've contracted to do, and what their relationship is as well. Within the CRO, we have a number of, we believe a number of different levels. Going back to the governance role that we've looked at previously, is obviously senior oversight. We've also got sort of support within the organisation and the junior team, but everyone understands what their role and responsibility is. It's very clear, and people are held to task on that. But in the middle is collaboration, and I think the key point areas for success is in terms of collaboration. If issues do happen, and they're always going to, in any outsourcing engagement, there is always going to be issues, and I think one has to, when they're setting it up, put things in place to be prepared to resolve issues, because they're going to happen. And that's absolutely key. And actually, you know, spending the time with your junior staff and your middle management, saying that if things have gone wrong, to be open about it, not to try and hide it, and make sure that they can be resolved at that point before they flare up into anything bigger. Okay, next slide, please. This is a sort of governance, and it goes back to the sort of triangle that I think Suzanne and Shannon both deployed, is having clear governance programs, clear oversight, and actually having very open and honest sort of discussions. and also having a sort of a line by which if issues do break out, that they are resolved in an effective way. So there's no blame, there's actually an understanding, and everyone's kind of in it together to make this this work. We tend to have monthly sort of meetings at an operational level and executive level meetings once a quarter. These are, have to be, everyone has to sort of buy into them and be there and have their kind of overall roles and responsibilities. But it's absolutely key that the relationship and the communication goes at all levels of the relationship to make the sort of partnership work. So actually, at the end of the day, you are delivering to the same end, you've got the same objectives, and should be working as the same organisation. Okay, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this. It's probably more specific to the area in which we are working in terms of taking on a sort of department area. The transition plan is absolutely key for the success of the project, because a number of the times we're taking on a function within an organisation where that function is disappearing. So we need to make sure that we take on the knowledge and the expertise from the client organisation into us, so we can become that extension to their department. And often outsourcing relationships fail at this point because not enough time or investment is put in from either side to making sure this works. And I think sometimes when we're going, people are going out to pitch, they want to kind of provide a cost-effective solution. Actually, this is an upfront cost which people need to take and need to buy, because it's absolutely key for the success of a program going forward. And quite often we see programs failing at this point, because what you're trying to do is take on the work, build up a new team, but also making sure that you've got business as normal going on at the same time. So this is a kind of key point, and for any sort of successful relationship and partnership, it's very worthwhile spending a number of time and money and a lot of executive oversight until this gets right. So that's a kind of key for a successful partnership going forward, getting everything right before you move on. Okay, and then we can start looking at continuous improvement. And this is something that we hold very strong within our delivery model here at Kinapse. We work with our consulting team to help initiate this, and with some representation from the client company. We look at every aspect of the engagement that we're running, and we have formal reviews every 6 months. And within that, we look at what's working, what's not necessarily working, what we can do better, and put that in place. And what we're aiming to do is obviously make things smoother and make things more effective, but also taking some of the cost out of the engagement as well. Because one of the reasons that obviously successful outsourcing arrangements is people are trying to improve process, improve quality, but also look at sort of cost reduction. Okay. And fundamental to all this is having very good and strong KPIs, and these must be agreed by both parties. They must measure both parties' performance. There's no point just measuring the performance of your CRO. You must also measure the performance of the client company. And this is an example that we would use in our specific area, but they're absolutely key. What they do is they stop the blame culture. You've actually got good quantitative data on which to kind of make assessments, judge the value of the relationship, and put amends or celebrate success, really. So that's absolutely key. And our recommendation is to put time and effort into getting these right, and they must be owned by the partnership. Okay. So really, in summary, as my other colleagues said, really be open. I think one of the key parts in a partnership is trust. You don't trust each other, it's never really going to work. Have good governance metrics, because those are the things that if things start to go wrong, you can go back to, you can look at, and you can assess. You can put things in place, or you can also celebrate your success. Escalate issues. Don't try and hide issues. The sooner issues are escalated, they are going to happen. People make mistakes. We're all humans. But escalate to the appropriate level quickly so it can be dealt with. Be open, on both sides. Again, respect each other. You're in there together. You're not. We're working together. and I think also encourage and enhance a culture of mutual and continuous improvement on both sides. I've got one last slide, just in summary. We did some recent work for a big pharma company and looking at the sort of state of some of the outsourcing partnership relationships. And Steve, I'll make a couple of quotes, which I think we all need to look at as we move into sort of partnerships. I don't think we're necessarily there within our industry yet. He said, I have a good definition of what partnering means to the pharma industry. We pay, you do as you're told. Therefore, networking partner expertise is a new skill to be learned. That's on both sides. I think quite often where partnerships fail is people haven't got the right skills to work in a partnership environment. Investment needs to happen, and people who are managing those partnerships from both sides. We put people in who'd be very good in a functional role within the pharma company or within the CRO, but they're not necessarily good at managing the partnership. It's a new skill. And then, and I agree with this, the acid test for outsourcing is to go back 3 years after you've done it and see how many of the old group are still there managing outsourcing. Because the answer to that is a fair proportion did not achieve what you set out to do. And again, I think we quite often see that we have a lot of organisations, there are a number of people who are actually managing that that relationship. And I think that's something we need to kind of look at from both sides, because if farmers feel they need to have those people managing it, and the CROs we're not delivering, and if CROs, a pharma company is still having that number of people managing CROs, then they haven't succeeded either. So I think we've still got a fair way to go. We're beginning to get there, but in terms of the true partnership, it's about being open and working as if you're all in the same organisation. But I think we're getting there. There's steps to go, and that's the end of my discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela, and thank you to all the presenters for their contributions today. We have 10 minutes or so for questions. Just to remind those of you on the webinar, if you want to submit a question through the chat feature, then please do so. I'll kick off with a question for the panel here. We talked a lot about sharing and bringing the two organizations in the partnership closer together, sharing processes, aligning systems, even to the extent that Suzanne talked about, was aligning personal objectives on both sides of the relationship. What aspects do you think that there are within the CRO or the sponsor that you would not share? What's the limit to bringing things together? Because you'll get to the point where in fact you are the same company. So what is it that you would keep in-house? So it's critical to keep within your own control, even within this type of strategic partnership.
I think certainly within GSK we pride ourselves, we're going on a journey of transparency. So our default position is to be as transparent as we need to be with our CRO partners in order for them to understand what our needs are, right? But one of the things that I think we have to keep a tight control over is our obligation as a sponsor and ensuring that we have good, robust sponsor oversight mechanisms. So no matter how successful our external partner may be, we still need to ensure that we've got the adequate sponsor oversight, and we mustn't translate or dilute or misperceive sponsor oversight as micromanagement or sponsor additional resources being levied, as you've said, Angela, right? We mustn't confuse the two, because sponsor oversight, I think, is a minimum that we need to demonstrate to our regulators that we remain accountable for that asset, although we've delegated a responsibility for delivery of that study to the CRO. So I think that's where I think we probably wouldn't cross the line on is sponsor oversight. We mustn't get too comfortable going down the empowerment route, empowering our external partnerships to the extent that we're quite blasé and laid off. We need to make sure the KPIs and all that stuff's still there, and our oversight is still robust.
Thank you. Suzanne or Shannon, would you add to that?
I would say that when we go through our...
Oh, sorry. Can we start with Suzanne, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. When we go through our pipeline of studies and what we envision is going to be outsourced for the next couple of years and what's on the table, we don't invite our CRO partner to sit in on those initial discussions. There's kind of a process that takes place of which ones look in the future, which studies look suited for this particular CRO partner, which ones do we have to dig a little deeper to find out their current experience, and which ones do we just know that there's a gap in their expertise and we need to bid it elsewhere. And remember, the CRO that we're dealing with is getting about 80% of our outsourced studies. So we do have another CRO that understands that they're getting a smaller portion and is sort of waiting in the wings, if you will. So we don't, to your question, we don't share that initial long list of studies. What they're going to be seeing is after that, after those discussions, what chunk do they get? But they're going to be filled in, and at the executive level, discussions will take place about our pipeline, about the therapeutic areas and areas that we're planning on going into. But there is definitely a line in the sand of what we cross and what we don't cross.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. And Shannon, what about from the CRO perspective?
Sure, absolutely. We've talked about it a little bit before, and for me, I think what sticks out most is the CRO industry is a business. We certainly, are there to partner with pharma to get drugs to market, but we do still have to make a profit. And so I think in these partnership relationships where things get a little sticky sometimes is, we want to do everything that we possibly can to make things happen. But unfortunately, we can't work for free. And so the negotiation that happens at the partnership level around what the fee structure will be, how those cost savings are applied, all of that is really important to get taken care of at the partnership level. So at the actual operational team level, teams are able to make that happen and can focus on the studies themselves. But that's absolutely a place. And then the other thing that I thought of as well is resourcing decisions. Within the CRO, resourcing is as much of an art as it is a science to try to match the right people with the right skills, depending on the type of relationship that we have with that client, what level of leadership skill is absolutely required for that to be successful. That can be quite a dance, and our clients develop favorites over time, of course, and we want to do everything that we can to further the relationship. But one of the things that we do sort of have to keep control over is the ability to put the right people in the right place.
Thank you, Shannon. Angela, would you add anything to that?
Well, I agree completely with Shannon. We are, obviously, we're here to kind of delight our clients from CRO, but also we are a business and we need to make money. And I think kind of emphasizing that in the kind of startup area, it does cost money. Let's put some money at it. Let's be kind of fair about it, and let's try and not nickel and dime. And yes, having the right people and the right level of resource. And really, as a CRO, we are usually quite expert at that. We kind of know what the resource levels are required. And kind of trust us on that. But again, really, I think the most important bit is being open and honest, and you are in there as a partnership and listen to each other, and you need to move things forward to be successful, really.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody else in the room here? No, we're rapidly running out of time here, so I think in respect to that time, we can draw it to a close. I just have one reflection before we close out. It strikes me that as we went through all the presentations today, the common themes of trust, shared goals, collaboration, collaborative problem solving are really aspects that are critical to the success of an organization, let alone within a partnership. So I'm wondering whether we'll get to the stage where those that are involved in managing outsourcing relationships will almost become best practice in those types of skills that the organization itself can learn from. Because certainly I see behaviors like that not necessarily being completely embedded in all of the organizations that we work with. And perhaps there's something that eventually, internally, companies will take from how these partnerships are managed in order to improve their own way of working. So just remains to all of the panelists for their participation today. I know it was the effort put into developing the slides and to actually delivering them today was significant. And also thank you very much for the attendees for taking the time to join today. I hope you got some insight. This presentation has been recorded and we will be putting it on our website for others to maybe haven't been able to join today to listen to in the future. So with that, we'll close. Thank you very much again to everybody for your time. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.